Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thanks for tuning in to this week's eWEEK eSPEAKS segment. And our guest again today is Zeus Kerravala, who runs ZK Research and is one of the best known and most respected networking analysts in the country. And I mean that seriously, Zeus.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And I mean that too. I probably, at least from a tenure perspective, I've probably been covering networking longer than most of the analysts. So and I'm always happy to do these Z Speaks on eSpeaks.
Yeah, and you do the analysis in such an entertaining way too. I really appreciate that. I edit your stuff all the time, and I enjoy it. I learn something every time I read one of your pieces.
Oh,
So,
good. I appreciate that.
so anyway, we're going to talk about the entrance into the SD-WAN field of companies that previously weren't there before, bringing new ideas to the table. eWEEK just published a week or so ago, maybe 10 days ago, a list of what it considers the top SD-WAN providers in the country. And we had to update it right away because there are so many changes that you noticed. And we're still in the process of updating the entire story, and it should be completely updated by tomorrow. Anyway, Zeus, tell us about this trend and who these companies are and what they're bringing new to the table.
Yeah, and I will say that wasn't an exhaustive list. Like the segment that we left out were the global network providers, companies like Verizon, Tata, Singtel, companies like that. But then every network operator has also got an SD-WAN offering. These are really primarily the infrastructure providers. I included one managed service provider. And I do think, just before I get into the vendors themselves, the reason we're seeing this is because what's happened with SD-WAN, and when you look out in the future, this thing called SASE, we got security and networking coming together, right? And so that means any company that was previously in the security space wants to be in the SD-WAN space. And if you're in the network space, you want to make security part of your SD-WAN offering. And so that's why there's been such interest. One of the more interesting vendors I think that jumped into space is Fortinet. For most people out there, they're going to know Fortinet as a security buyer. Very, very good price performance. They tend to, they've been a leader for 20 plus years. They spin their own silicon, and so that lets them create a consistent set of features across their products. They've actually been in networking for quite some time. A lot of people don't know they got their own switches, routers, Wi-Fi access points, and so this was a logical extension for them. Fortinet does have over 20,000 customers, and so what they've done is they've taken their next-gen firewall, the FortiGate product, and they've built SD-WAN into it. They also have a very, very low-cost SD-WAN appliance, and so it's very popular with managed service providers because it's a little box you put on-prem, and then you connect it back to the other Fortinet equipment for the security capabilities. They tend to score very well in a lot of the tests they've done from NSS Labs, companies like that. But I think their strength is that is security, obviously, but their product is available at a bunch of different form factors. So you can use their virtual appliance, or you can use the FortiGate firewall, you can use their small appliance. It's also available on all of the major cloud providers, so you could actually buy that service from Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Alibaba, Oracle, things like that. So I think they're kind of an interesting one to watch. Another one that's kind of the same as Palo Alto Networks, they would be, they jumped in this space through the acquisition of CloudGenix. They, like Fortinet, are known as a very good security company, network security. They have some of the best performing stuff in the industry. And but the thing that they were missing was really SD-WAN. Now, you could do SD-WAN before with Palo Alto by doing a lot of IPsec VPN tunnels, but that was a little bit confusing. With CloudGenix, it gives them a pure offering that gives them more network capability, and it supports, I think, that cloud delivered branch architecture where you can have infrastructure in the cloud, have that lean branch, but then be able to connect to a whole host of cloud delivered security services. So CloudGenix was one of the early adopters, was really one of the pioneers of the space. Their product supported by machine learning, data sciences. Their CloudGenix Blade also offers very easy integration into other platforms. And so I think another strength that Palo Alto brings is they got very deep application expertise with a lot of layer 7 intelligence for creating different policies for specific applications. And that becomes important with things like unified communications, right? And so if you look at SD-WAN deployments, a lot of them are tied to unified communications deployments because you do have the real-time traffic. Another new entrant this year for us on the article was Masergy. Now, Masergy is a managed service provider. They're actually 20 years old. They've been more of a white glove kind of turnkey network provider. And they support the trend that I was talking about, where they are a full service managed service provider. They have security services, they have network services, they have they resell unified communications. In fact, they were Cisco WebEx as one of their best partners. They sell contact center from the cloud. And so all this stuff's like come together. If I'm going to do cloud UC, then I should do SD-WAN, I need security. And so Masergy is kind of the epitome of that. I think they've been one of the most forward-looking managed service providers when it comes to SD-WAN. They recently launched their AI Ops story in which they can bring artificial intelligence into SD-WAN, and that's, you can call it, I'm calling that AI WAN, but you call it whatever you want. But they do, one of the things I like about Masergy is they have a broad way of delivering products. I think if you look at the Gartner definition of SASE, it talks about all your security being cloud native. I think from a practicality standpoint, it's hard to get there if you're a large enterprise. You still want to have some on-premises security. And so what Masergy does is you can actually deliver that any way you want. You can have a mix of cloud on-prem. You can use whatever favorite vendor you have. And so I think for companies that don't have the skill set to deploy SD-WAN, using a managed service provider like Masergy is a good option because you can still use the tools you like. You can still use your Fortinet gear or your Cisco gear or whatever, but they'll manage it for you. They also came out with some SLAs that were they were quite a bit different than traditional telco SLAs. They were more SLAs in line with the SD-WAN industry, and that's something if you talk to network managers, nobody believes SLAs anyways. So they tried to reorient them so to be a little more in line with where the industry is going.
Masergy is, just as a side note, an example of an innovation type company coming out of the Midwest. They're based in Minnesota.
No, Masergy is in Texas. They're based out of Plano.
Oh, okay. Well, they're still in Midwest. Okay. Well, I talked to somebody in Minnesota the other. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, they're Texas based, and
okay.
They've been around a while. They actually got their start as a video provider for Cisco's telepresence.
Okay. Oh, really?
So yeah. Well, and because of that, they have a very low latency, high performance network.
Okay.
Yeah. So another new one to our list is Aruba, an HP enterprise company. Aruba, they were what I consider the first SD branch company, if you want to call it that, where they took into account things on the LAN side, Wi-Fi, of course, branch switching, things like that. But when you think about the way an application traverses a network, it doesn't think WAN versus LAN, it's just a network, right? And so Aruba's tried to tie those things together. Now, I will say their SD-WAN offering was okay, but not market leading by any stretch of the imagination. So they went out and bought Silver Peak recently, right? So that acquisition, I think, gave them a very good SD-WAN company. I think the Silver Peak acquisition actually was very astute. I think it brings a level of WAN optimization in, and I think that's important as well, because as I mentioned, a lot of companies, large enterprises especially, will likely keep a hybrid model in which they do keep their MPLS in place and then go broadband. And in that case, you are going to need some level of WAN optimization. I think Aruba's strength, though, has always been on the security side. I've said this about Aruba before. To me, they're not a Wi-Fi vendor. They're a security vendor that's dressed up as a Wi-Fi vendor, and now an SD-WAN vendor, because that's where a lot of their strengths have come from. They got a good AI story. They bought a company a little while ago that brings a lot of AI ops capabilities to place. So I think they're Aruba, given the popularity of Aruba as a Wi-Fi company, will really makes them a formidable foe, in the SD-WAN space. And frankly, they've got HP distribution as well, so that's important.
Right, it's huge.
Another one that wasn't talked about a lot, they've been around a while, is Versa Networks. Now, the reason why most enterprise buyers may not have known about Versa Networks is because they sold primarily through service providers. So a lot of service providers, Verizon, Comcast, folks like that, actually are built on Versa equipment. And Versa built they have a single pass pipeline architecture where the security, routing, SD-WAN analytics are all built on that one single platform that's cloud resident. And so I think if you look at the the push towards SASE, where you've got cloud resident things, Versa fits that really well. One of the unique things that Versa does, they just came out with this a couple of months ago, is they have a software client. So you could actually install a software client on your computer, Chris, and you could SD-WAN back to your corporate headquarters. And so this opens the door for the SD-WAN, not just to be branch offices, but actually individual people, right? So now every IoT device, every home worker becomes part of the WAN. And so Versa recently started to try to sell to large enterprises, and they've got a whole bunch of them now. So I look at them as a very good company. They have a full stack of security tools. They're ideally suited for companies that want that kind of lean IT organization. They operate on their own appliance. They have a Dell appliance as well. They run on white boxes. They have a virtual product as well as being available from the cloud.
That's great.
And then the last one, there's one more.
Go ahead.
Is Cato Networks. And so Cato is arguably, well, they're certainly one of the first vendors to really embrace the concept of SASE, and so which is Secure Access Service Edge. And they're based out of Tel Aviv. They're an Israeli company, and all Israeli companies are really good technically. That's the one commonality they have. And so they have a lot of enterprise class capabilities built into the cloud. And so they're ideally suited for that highly distributed organization that wants to move all of their infrastructure, their security and networking off premise and into the cloud. I've talked to some of their customers before, and they can get customers turned up literally in minutes. All you need is a network connection back to them, and they can do that. So Cato built all their own their security stack. They've got an edge device known as sockets, which creates an IPsec tunnel from the branch to the cloud, or the branch to a third-party firewall, so you can mix and match your favorite third-party tools. They do have a mobile client as well. They also have a clientless solution, and so Cato can let you do SD-WAN to almost any type of environment you want. And I think Cato's a good company. We should hear more about them. They've been growing really fast, and so that's a quick rundown of all the new vendors that we added to our list.
Zeus, thank you so much for that overview, and a lot of detail in there too on each of these new competitors in this very important SD-WAN networking space. Thanks again.
If you want to know more, read the article, right?
Yes. Everybody, read eWEEK.com. Look for Zeus. Type in ZEUS at the in the search bar at the top, and you'll get a whole list of great pieces that Zeus has done. Again, Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research. Thank you very, very much for being our guest on eWEEK eSpeaks.
Thank you. And for people watching this, watch this space. If you think there's been a lot of change in SD-WAN the last couple of years, wait to the next couple of years. With the infusion of AI, this industry is going to look completely different, a couple of years from now. So.
Yeah, so much news coming out of the networking space.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, everybody, thanks for following along on our eWEEK eSpeaks today. Thanks for joining us, and everybody have a great rest of your eWEEK. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.